Hi, I'm going to show you how to make this mandala wall hanging using the zingy and the summer patch colours. So this is what the patch materials look like when you receive them. They are symmetrical across the diagonal axis, so you can put them together, twist them and turn them to form mandalas, and that's how you get this symmetrical effect on the wall hanging. So I've carefully cut up one piece of the zingy and one piece of the summer patch material, and I've just cut them all into squares, and I've carefully arranged them on the table in the order that I wish to sew them together to get the effect that I want to. So you can see now I've got them all laid out. I'm just going to now mark one side with a felt tip pen so that I know which way round when I take them to the sewing machine they need to be sewn, because obviously because they're symmetrical and because they have to be in a certain order, we want to keep them in that order. So I'm just carefully marking the right hand side so that I know which way up they are, and picking them up in order so that when I take them to the sewing machine I can just sew them together in order into a long strip, and that makes piecing these really quick. Very easy. If you've never done patchwork before, this is a super project to start with because it's so easy. It's all machine piecing, it's all machine sewing, and very quick to do, quite satisfying, and also all of the colours and materials you need are included in just the two pieces of fabric, so you don't need to amass a huge collection of fabrics to get yourself going. So I've taken my patches to the sewing machine now, and I'm just going to line them up carefully. Now, because the edges are white, you can see exactly where your patches need to line up together, and the gutters here are exactly the right size for you to run the edge of your stamper foot along the edge of the material and get your stitches in the right place. Now, that's a standard measurement for a standard foot. If yours varies slightly, just move your needle slightly to the left or right and get them so that you've got no white showing as you sew these patches together. So these come together really quickly, and all we're going to do is sew them together in one long row, and then we're going to later on we're going to sew the rows together, and I'll show you how to do that accurately. So just keep going, piecing together. This is a really quick project, and like I say, it's great if you're a starter because it comes together so fast, and it does look really fabulous when it's finished. Because all the materials and the patches here are designed to go together colour wise, you get a really good result without having to spend ages agonising over colour choices and buying lots of fabric you don't need. So I've sewn all my strips together here, and we're all ready to move on to the next phase. Now, so that I don't get into a pickle, I want to know which strip's which, so I've just marked them with little dots so that I know which strip has to be attached to which other strip, and I'm going to press the seams. Now, as I'm pressing the seams on these strips, I want them to be pressed in different directions on each strip, so that when they're pieced together you remove the bulk from the seam. So on this first one I'm going to make sure that the seams are pressed over towards the left. On the next one I'll spin it and make sure that they're pressed over towards the right, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. So there's my first one done. So I'm just going to press all of my pieces here, all of my strips. This one, you see, there's the mark. I'm just going to spin it now and then press the seams in the other direction, and you'll see why in a moment. So I'm just stretching the fabric slightly as I'm doing this, just to make sure that the seams are nice and open, and we get a lovely flat result when it's finished. So you can take some time to trim off all of the little threads that you've got sticking off the edge there, because they'll get in your way later. So again, just a press on the front to make sure that everything's looking lovely and flat. And there, so that's round the right way. So we need to put these two together now. You can see how they fit together, and you can see now that the seams are running in separate directions, different directions, so that the bulk is removed there. So I'm going to pin them now. I'm going to make sure that the seams, the centre of the seams, are actually on top of each other, and just pin them so that they'll run through the sewing machine really nice and easily. So I'm just going to now pin these strips together, If you put your pins in at a 90-degree angle to your seam, you can just sew right over the pins. You don't have to take them out, and that means that your project's held together nicely while you're stitching it. It speeds things up a lot for you because you're not fiddling around trying to take pins out. So I'm just going to pin. I'm making sure the seams are together. I'm just pinning the little flaps down there, and then I'm just going to run a seam quickly up the edge in the right position. So there, I've done that now on the machine. Just taking the pins out, and I'm just now going to press this seam open, and you can see now how these symmetrical patches are starting to work together to give us our mandalas. So that's all that's involved in bringing this whole quilt top together, is just repeating this process in the right order with the strips that you've made. I think we had the Air Force go over there for a minute, sorry about that. Okay, so still pressing, and we're just going to repeat this process over and over until we've got our quilt top together. So there is our quilt top all finished. And I've just layered it now. I've put some wadding behind it, and a piece of material is just a old bit out of a curtain lining that I happen to have lying around. So that will just form the backing of the quilt. And I'm going to now go to the process of quilting it. So this is what the quilting will kind of look like. It adds texture, and it brings all of your layers together. It brings the whole piece together nicely. So this has been done using a freeform embroidery foot on the sewing machine, and I've just literally done it by hand, moving the fabric around. So I'm using an embroidery hoop, and I'm putting the quilt into the embroidery hoop. You need to use this upside down. So normally if you were doing regular hand sewing, you would have the fabric on the top of the hoop, and we've just made it so that it's on the bottom, and I'm just using a freeform embroidery foot on my machine. I've dropped the tension right down on the top thread, and I'm just guiding the fabric beneath the stamper foot there, following the contours of the design itself in order to give me my pattern. So I love doing this. It's great fun. It's really quick to do. It's great fun. I'm using machine embroidery threads because they look nice, and also because I have a very wide range of colours in those, so I've got enough different colours to match and contrast with the colours that I have on this quilt. So just go wild. There's really no way to get this wrong. Just go, do what you feel, and the fact that you're adding the quilting stitches and texture to your project will always make it look better. So just go with the flow. I'm just quilting right up to the edges of this square here, and we're going to repeat this process all over the quilt to give us our lovely quilted texture. So it doesn't actually take too long at all, and as I say, it's great fun. So we're going to keep on going with the quilting for a little while. I'm going to show you another couple of examples of it as well, so you can get some idea of how to make your quilting patterns using the pattern that is on the fabric. So I'm just going to change the colour I'm using here because I want to do something inside this little flower. So I've changed for a kind of yellow thread here, and I'm now going to add some detail to the centre of the flower, following the lines on the fabric here, just to mark out the centre of the flower there. There we go, and that gives us some raised puffy bits to go with the quilted bits as well, and just makes your design stand out more. So you can see we've added some nice texture. I'm going to go through this process with another square. You can see there what the stitches all look like when they're finished. So I'm going to go through the process with another patch here, just so that you can get the idea of how to do this. And all I'm doing is following the pattern that's on the fabric, just moving the fabric around freehand. You want to make sure you've not got your machine running too fast, because you won't move your fabric fast enough for the stitches to actually appear to be stitches. They'll be so tiny you won't be able to see them. So this is speeded up, this bit of film, so my machine's actually running fairly slowly. That gives me the time to react and push the fabric where I want it to go. So you can see there, just by following the patterns on the fabric, how we've made a nice quilted design there. So I've finished quilting my top now. I've done every square there, and I'm just going to now trim the edges right back to the edge of the white seam allowance on those edge patches there. So just chop it all off square, and I'm just going to show you quickly how to bind the edge of this quilt to finish the project off, make it look nice and tidy. So I love these colours together. The colours from the zingy and the summer patch do work very well together. So to cover up the back of the quilt, which is a bit messy because we've used different colour threads, I'm just going to pin a spare piece of fabric to the back to use as a backing. This is just a spare piece of curtain lining that happens spookily to be exactly the right width. If you haven't got something that's exactly the right width, just pin it on, and you can cut round it later to make sure it's the right size. Just like here on the end, I've pinned it. Now I'm just chopping off so that it's the right size there. So I've got some bias binding here, which is an inch wide, and it's purple, which matches. I did stitch the 3 layers of the quilt there together before, and I've just now pinned the bias binding using my pins at 90 degrees so that I can just run straight through with the sewing machine. And you can see there now I've run the sewing machine along the crease in the bias binding. I'm just going to remove these pins, and you can see how tidy it actually becomes on the front side now, where you roll the bias binding over to encapsulate the edge of your quilt like so. I like to hand stitch the back of this so that it looks beautifully tidy and you can't see anything from the front. So I'm just going to pin now all the way around, making sure the bias binding is nice and tight around the edge there, and then I'm just going to hand stitch it, and that's this little project finished. So not difficult to do, very quick project, make a great gift. Looks like you've spent absolutely ages making this thing. Hasn't taken too long at all, I don't think. So you can buy the mandala patches from mandalapatch.com, and this, as I say, is the zingy and the summer patch mandala pieces, and you can do this wall hanging. You can mix and match them in with other fabrics that you've got as well. There's nothing to stop you doing that. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Thank you very much for watching, and be sure and subscribe, and we'll send you all of our videos as soon as they're made, and you can get everything as soon as it comes out then. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye.